Do the sheep lie down to Celtic? Well, the fact checkers here at Fog Football want to see if this is true. We are going to go through a lot of statistics today, and we're going to break it down, and we're going to have an answer by the end of today's video. Welcome back to Fog Football. And this has caused a bit of controversy in recent days, hasn't it? 6-0. And it's not just 6-0. The only meaningful game that Aberdeen have seen to win against Celtic was when they needed to finish above Rangers. So I'm looking forward to this.
You're looking forward to this video just like I'm sure Aberdeen are looking forward to playing Rangers in their next game, because according to Chris Boyd, that's the only games they get up for. That's the only 4 times a season, excluding potential cup meetings, that Aberdeen actually try. So we're going to look at this and we're going to see is there any truth to it. We're going to look at a few stats here that have been tweeted on Twitter, and we are going to come to the conclusion whether or not Aberdeen do try harder against Rangers, and is there a reason for that? So the famous Aberdeen account on X wasn't too happy about what Chris Boyd was saying, and I get it. As a pundit, you sort of have to be impartial, I guess, to some extent, but at the end of the day, Chris Boyd is a Rangers man, so I do expect him to show favouritism and bias towards Rangers, just like I expect...
Just as the phone got wung across the room there, like Motherwell crashing down the league table. But back to it, and also I want to just point out, I think that there should have been Aberdeen representation during this Super Sunday. Like, I think the fact that it's just old firm pundits. I know McFadden's there, but we all know McFadden.
Who did he play for? He never played for Aberdeen?
Yeah, I know, but we all know he's a Celtic man, that's my point.
Anyway, before I was rudely interrupted by the phone, before it made me lose my train of thought, I was saying that, yeah, Chris Boyd, I do expect him to show favouritism towards Rangers because he was a Rangers player. And it's the exact same thing with Chris Sutton. You know, 2 guys that are pretty controversial, 2 guys that like to be edgy, like to have a lot of banter, and like to push buttons. Let's be honest, they do that. I expect Chris Boyd to, like I said, favourite Rangers, show favouritism towards Rangers, and if he feels that Aberdeen are trying harder against Rangers, then he's going to come out and say that, because he's going to try and find justification into potentially why Rangers struggle more against Aberdeen than Celtic struggle against Aberdeen. But anyway, the famous Aberdeen account on Twitter said, "It's a total joke. Boyd is constantly put on TV to cover Aberdeen games. It's so clear to see his hated for us. For a pundit who is supposed to be on Sky to promote the Scottish game to instead undermine it and imply we lied into Celtic and only try against Rangers is a disgrace." I don't think he necessarily hates Aberdeen, does he? Does he hate Aberdeen?
No, I think he just hates the fact that, according to him, they lie down.
If Aberdeen were playing fucking Dundee here, would he be really using like negative terms to describe Aberdeen? Would he be running Aberdeen down? I think it's more the fact he's just pointed out that they've lost 6-0 to Celtic and he doesn't think they would lose 6-0 to Rangers.
No, I mean, let's be real, right? Boyd's a Rangers man, so therefore he should hate Celtic, but Boyd praises Celtic. It's not just like... I mean, Sutton... I would say Sutton... I mean, obviously Rangers haven't done much in recent years to, get some praise, but at the same time, I think Boyd's very fair when it comes to this. I haven't noticed an anti-Aberdeen agenda for this guy. It's just, I think he's just pointing out how bad this was. And I actually like the fact that up here, they talk about things like this. See, in England, man, they only get a bit heated with each other and it's about the fucking Glazers. Gary. I like the fact they actually get stuck in about things like this.
I don't think that in England they would dare even mention something like this. Accuse a team of lying down or not trying as hard.
No, they wouldn't, because they're all shite bags. I like the fact that this gets talked about here.
Yeah, so that's what the famous Aberdeen had to say. Then there was a reply from Rangers Spares. I guess this is an account on Twitter where if you've got spare tickets, you can try and purchase them or sell them or something like that. Anyway, Rangers Spares replied to the Aberdeen famous saying, "Aberdeen have beaten Celtic once in 34 games, and funnily enough, it was the game to make us finish third in the league." So if you can remember that, Aberdeen needed to beat Celtic in order to finish ahead of Rangers, and surprisingly that day they did beat Celtic.
And so, it was at Parkhead, make no mistake about it, man.
Yeah, was there some funny business going on that day? Look, we don't exactly know, but here's the last 34 games that Aberdeen have played against Celtic and the last 34 games that Aberdeen have played against Rangers. So 30 wins for Celtic, 3 draws for 3 draws for both of them, and 1 solitary win for Aberdeen, and obviously that win came in the game that Aberdeen needed to win to stay ahead of Rangers. Right, first of all, let's be honest, that's a fucking horrendous record. No matter, Aberdeen aside, that would be a bad record regardless of who it is, but considering Aberdeen have a claim to be the third biggest team in Scotland, that is an abysmal record, and there's just no excuse for that. Even if you lie down, your record should be better than that. Right? I don't give a fuck if you turn up every game and you don't try. Your record shouldn't be as bad as that. That is like a League 1, League 2 level record against Celtic. They should be doing better than that. There is no way that Aberdeen should only have recorded 1 win against Celtic in the last 34 games. And it's not even like they have a shitload of draws either.
They've got 3.
I mean, they've lost 30 out of their last 34 games against Celtic. That is inexcusable.
No, it's mad though, right? See, before I actually seen this stat, I would have bet money that Aberdeen had beat Celtic after that game. I did not think it was that long.
I'm surprised they don't have more draws. I know they don't beat Celtic often, but I would have thought there'd be more than 3 draws in there in the last 34 games. You look at the cards, Celtic have had 46, which averages at 1.35 per game. Aberdeen have had 69, which averages at 2.02 per game. Then you look at their record against Rangers, so 34 games against Rangers. Again, Rangers have won the majority, but it's nowhere near as decisive as Celtic, nowhere near as dominant as Celtic. Rangers have won 18. There has been 9 drawn, and Aberdeen have won 7. So almost half of the games Rangers have won, and then the other half have pretty much either been a draw or an Aberdeen win. So much closer here. As you can see, it's not one-way traffic. It's not one team constantly dominating. And in terms of goals for and goals scored, Rangers have scored 61 to Aberdeen's 32. So we've almost got a 2-to-1 ratio. It's similar to a 2-to-1 ratio in favour of Rangers, whereas for Celtic, it's a 4-to-1 ratio in terms of goals scored. So
it's crazy differences.
We're talking, when Celtic play Aberdeen, the average scoreline is like Celtic winning or outscoring Aberdeen by 4 goals to 1, whereas when Rangers do it, it's 2 goals to 1. So that is a massive difference as well. Then we look at the cards. Rangers have had 78, which equals 2.29 per game. Aberdeen have had 117, which equals 3.44 per game. Now, Rangers Spurs clarified that they added the cards to show how much more effort Aberdeen put into the games, and he has mentioned the fact that Aberdeen have had more cards, therefore they try more, they try harder, and apparently this stat 100% proves that Aberdeen try harder to win the games against Rangers. So let's break the whole cards argument down, because I'm not necessarily sure that just because you have more cards means that they are trying harder, because first of all, I would say over the last 34 games, Celtic have been a much better team than Rangers have been, so therefore I think it would make sense that Celtic have better statistics and they have more wins against Aberdeen than Rangers would have against Aberdeen, because during those 34 games, Celtic have A, been a lot better than Rangers, and B, during a period of those games, Aberdeen were actually the second best team in Scotland and not Rangers. So I think it makes perfect sense that Celtic would overall have a better record in terms of games won and in terms of you just being more competitive. I think it makes sense that Celtic have been more successful against Aberdeen than Rangers have been against Aberdeen. Can we agree on that?
Yes, we can totally agree on that. And I don't think anyone can really argue that, to be honest. I think you look at most of these results and yes, Rangers Aberdeen is a rivalry. Celtic Aberdeen is not. So therefore, I think the cards to be expected for the Rangers Aberdeen games, it should automatically be higher, in my opinion.
Now, yes, the Aberdeen cards are higher, but we also need to factor in that the Rangers cards are higher as well. Rangers are almost equaling an extra full card per game against Aberdeen than Celtic do. So it's not as if it's just, if you're going to say the cards mean that the teams are trying harder, then by that argument, Rangers are trying harder to beat Aberdeen than Celtic are.
Yeah.
If more cards mean that you're trying harder to win, then that means Rangers are trying harder to win against Aberdeen than Celtic are trying.
Maybe the referees are more lenient towards Celtic.
And I would also argue that when games are tighter, I think when there's not much in the game, I think there's more likely to be cards than in games where it's more one-sided.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. But I think stats don't lie, right? And, let's talk about Rangers having had a penalty conceded against them in 67 games. Well, if we want to talk about that, I think these stats, it's to be expected. Well, I've looked at this, to be honest, from the Rangers' point of view. You would expect Aberdeen to have a lot more cards against Rangers than Celtic. These stats to me don't really prove too much. I don't think these is 100% proof. I think the proof's in the pudding when you actually just watch the fucking games.
No, I think Aberdeen definitely try harder because it's a rivalry and Aberdeen Celtic isn't a rivalry, but I don't think these stats are 100% proof. I don't think this is evidence that Aberdeen try harder. I think the stats are more in Celtic's favour against Aberdeen than they are Rangers because Celtic are a better team.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I know. You look at the way this season's went. If you compare Aberdeen at Ibrox to Aberdeen at home against Celtic, Celtic were not good at that stage of the season. Rangers were not good at that stage of the season either. And I think it was night and day, the two performances from Aberdeen. The energy levels and everything. They were giving it their all at Ibrox. Against Celtic, I thought it was embarrassing. Both games have played against them this season. That's 6-0 there. Boyd's right, though. 3-0 and got up the road. What were they doing in the last 7 minutes? Would they let that happen against Rangers? How many times have Rangers pumped Aberdeen in recent years? I remember a 5-0 result a couple of years ago. I believe Defoe was on the score sheet along with Greg Stewart. But more often than not, it's tight-ass games. More often than not, in the other case between Celtic and Aberdeen, it's pumpings, isn't it?
Aye.
It really is, but I'm not reading too much into this, to be honest. Are you?
No, I think I've just explained it. I'm not.
We're both not reading into this, and I think the proof is when you actually just watch the games. Boyd's right. See, in 2 weeks' time, Aberdeen, I wouldn't be surprised if Aberdeen take points off Rangers. But then the excuse will be, but they just get beat 6-0, they need to react. That sort of pish. No, it's because it's against Rangers. Boyd's right. He didn't come out and flat out say that they lie down, but let's be real, right? They don't actually openly go out and lie down, but I think the effort levels, the energy levels, it's a different ballgame altogether.
But Rangers Aberdeen's a rivalry and Celtic Aberdeen isn't really. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah. No, I think it's to be expected that you would try more, obviously, in a rivalry than you would in a normal game. But if Aberdeen are the third biggest club in Scotland and they want to be going for shit, I don't think that's a good enough excuse. I'm sorry, I don't think it is. See, in England, would Arsenal try the most greatest attempt ever at Tottenham, but when they play Man City, their title rivals, or United, they just fucking lie down and get they get 3 less cards on average a game? Does it really work like that? I think it's pathetic for Aberdeen fans to accept that they should be performing way less against Celtic because it's not a rivalry. I think Rangers, Old Firm's a way bigger rivalry than Aberdeen, but I want Rangers to be putting the same into it. It's almost like an expectancy for the fans. It's it's alright if we get pumped off Celtic because they'll try against Rangers. I've seen Aberdeen fans even call out their team on this. So it's not just a Rangers thing towards it. But obviously, here, it's never going to change. And I think Boyd's right. I'm not suggesting it's match fixing, but they definitely do not try as hard against Celtic that they do against Rangers, and it's facts.
Well, why would they though?
Yeah, but that's football. AC Milan are going to try harder against Inter Milan than they would against probably any other team in Italy, but I think there's a difference between your ultimate trying and what Aberdeen do against Celtic.
Well, that makes zero fucking sense because they're City rivals. I expect that. This is that. Let's just say Man City, Manchester United. That's the Celtic and Rangers. Manchester, that is the rivalry. The Manchester rivalry. Liverpool, they care more about beating Man United than they do Manchester City. It's a fucking fact.
Right. Yeah, well, I agree with that.
Well, that's my point. But you can't say, well, Liverpool lie down to Man City because they don't. And for the past 5-6 seasons, they've been going up against Man City for league titles. But the fact is, there's a rivalry between Liverpool and Manchester United that just isn't there with Manchester City. And that's Aberdeen have a rivalry with Rangers that just isn't there against Celtic.
No, it's not there. It was there during the Ronnie Daly era, like. So
Even as a neutral, I think you get excited to Rangers play Aberdeen. That's going to be a good game. See, when it's Aberdeen versus, and maybe it's got something to do with the results, but when it's Aberdeen Celtic, I don't sit there and go, "Oh, that's going to be a great game. Can't wait to watch that." I sit there thinking, "Fuck, that's an easy win for Celtic."
No, but I just look at Aberdeen's season though. They've played 4 games in Europe, been really good in all of them. And here they are. I mean, they just get scudded by Celtic. Weren't even that good. It was abysmal from Aberdeen. Worst performance of the season, man. But those Boyd's comments took out of context. Were they? Has it been blown out of proportion? Is he simply just saying, well, they'll be up for it against Rangers?
No, I just think he's stating the obvious. I think he's stating the I think it's obvious. I think there's a rivalry there, and there's not a rivalry with Aberdeen Celtic.
I think the biggest problem should be if you're an Aberdeen fan and like Chris Boyd is the most angriest person in Scotland over that result. I mean, Aberdeen fans were celebrating a Celtic pitching fader getting poleaxed by a Stewart. They're like 6-0 down. I mean, really? See, if Rangers were getting beat 6-0 by Celtic, some guy got battered by a Stewart, I couldn't give a shit in the slightest. I mean, what's that all about? Travelling down for Aberdeen to get pumped 6-0? Just another day at the office.
Well, maybe if Aberdeen stopped Celtic's dominance, maybe if they stopped 9 in a row, there would be a bigger rivalry between those two clubs.
Maybe there would be, right, but it's never going to change. They're going to go for Rangers more than Celtic. Let's just end it there.
Let's just end it there. Alright, guys, catch you in the next one. Rangers are going to struggle against Aberdeen because Aberdeen's going to try and Celtic are going to have it easy for the rest of the season.
But like I said earlier, we need some representation from like Aberdeen players. I think like when there is something like this.
Who? Ferguson? See, then these days get him on.
Strachan.
Well, why not get Strachan on?
Well, why not? Well, I mean, kind of.
They probably favour Celtic.
I probably would.
That's fucking why.
Lewis Ferguson, see when he's not banging in goals for Bologna, get him back.
Barry Robson, he'll be at a job soon. Get him on.
McKinn's was probably. Well, McKinn's of Rangers too, like, isn't he?
That's what I mean. Like, even if you get an Aberdeen guy on, it's probably allegiances aren't even with Aberdeen. They're probably one of the old firm.
It's the Glasgow Fishbowl, isn't it? Fish tank.
Yeah, it's the same with the fucking referees. I mean, look at you get 100 referees in Scotland. I mean, over 80 of them's going to support Rangers and Celtic, so you're always going to get this bias, man. To think that you're not, it's insane. Anyway, it's a totally different topic. Catch you in the next one, guys. Till then, let us know your thoughts down below. I mean, do Aberdeen lie down to Celtic? But I think Rangers up their game. I think Rangers up it for Aberdeen as well, more than Celtic do. So, and if you're basing it on these cards, if cards mean trying harder, then Rangers try harder against Aberdeen than Celtic try. So, yeah, there you go. Anyway, that's it, guys. Catch you in the next one. Till then, peace.